Have cutbacks actually affected our security here?
Well, there have been some cutbacks by the Department of Homeland Security. We've been increasing funding in general in Congress for this. And, of course, there's been a fight that's been going on for the last 8 or 9 years. Those of us in New York say, look, New York is obviously the terrorist target number one, and we are spending, I think I saw the figure, $800 million annually on anti-terrorist stuff, and we need the bulk of the anti-terrorism federal funding. But then we have minimum allocation formulas in every funding bill.
What does that mean?
What that means is that there's a formula, and every state gets at least a certain amount, which takes a lot of it right off the top for states which aren't particularly, for areas that aren't particularly.
What states are taking advantage of? Who's the worst offender here?
I can't say that. I mean, I've seen things that there's some small states there that they're getting money that they didn't even particularly ask for, and they're putting it into things that we would regard as fairly frivolous. I mean, nice, but not really necessary.
Like Wisconsin?
Various other states. But the fact is, we have allocation formulas in most things we do, education aid, highway aid, transportation aid, whatever. This shouldn't be that way. This should be targeted at the relatively few places which are really the terror targets. New York, Washington, maybe Los Angeles, Chicago. That's about it.
But what will we do with the extra money?
Oh, what will we do with the extra money? First of all, we have tremendous...
It's kind of a silly question asking a politician what you would do with extra money. I'm sure you'd find a place for it, but specifically, where are we vulnerable?
Well, number one, we ought to have more security cameras. Number two, we ought to complete, Chuck Schumer said we ought to complete the ring around New York of the cities, the detection all around New York for radiological and radioactive substances. We're paying huge amounts of overtime to our police and detectives. We've got a whole anti-terrorism task force between the New York PD and the FBI, which costs a lot of money. I would add that on a broader basis, not just for New York, we passed in Congress a number of years ago, back in 3 years ago, a bill that I had been pushing a long time. We got it into the defense bill that says that starting in 5 years, no shipping container can be put on a ship out to the United States unless that shipping container is electronically inspected first by an American team and sealed. The Bush administration said that this was impractical and they wouldn't do it, and the Obama administration hasn't really changed that. But it's the law, and we ought to be implementing the law.
Are you worried that some people are saying that we are just been lucky to date? Are you worried about that?
Well, I'm not worried about it. We have been lucky, and the fact is that no human system is 100% foolproof. And I mean, even here, everybody did exactly what they were supposed to do. The system worked. The two vendors apparently had seen the ads that said, if you see something, say something. They said something. The cop called in.
Police officer was very
the cop called in the backup. They looked, and everything was fine, except that when the cops were looking in, they heard the pop, pop, pop. And if the terrorist who did this had known what he was doing better, that bomb would have exploded at that point. It fizzled because he didn't quite know how to do it right. So we did everything right, and yet the bomb would have exploded. So we were very lucky. Now, you can't count on being lucky every time, and you can't count on everybody doing everything right every time. All you can do is minimize the odds. But you have to be prepared for the fact that some attacks will be successful.
Are you hearing anything about whether whoever was responsible might have been with a group?
It's far too early to say that.
Or an international plot? Have you heard that?
We don't know yet. Okay. It's too early to speculate. And the fact is that whether the guy who did this or the people who did this were with some Islamic terrorist group, or whether they were some right-wing nut group, or whether they were by themselves, in one sense, it doesn't matter because they're all dangerous. We've seen a number of people recently who were inspired by Al-Qaeda who made terrorist attacks who weren't in contact with anybody. They did it on their own. So individuals who have some knowledge, have some access to materials, can do really bad things. So and they just have to have the bad idea from Al-Qaeda or from the extreme right wing or from wherever.
All right. New York Democratic Congressman Jerry Nadler, good to be with you, sir. Very smart thoughts there.